Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Redacted Report. I am your host.
The fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and couldn't fucking manage a target.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location. It's been a while since I made a video. I wasn't planning on making a video anytime soon. But then this whole CM Punk, Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, AEW freaking fiasco came out. And, admittedly, I'm not going to shy away from a chance to just dump on AEW because I hate AEW. I think it sucks. Of course, to be fair, I think most wrestling nowadays sucks anyway. Whatever. I'm more old school. I'm 39 years old, so I was alive during the 80s and 90s when wrestling was good. Yeah. A lot of you people who are in your early 20s probably don't even know when wrestling was good. But regardless of what I think about wrestling, I have to talk about this because it's actually I'm having a different perspective on this video a little bit, because as I was thinking about what I was going to say in my head, the word comes out that the Young Bucks, there was a lot of suspensions, and it was crazy because apparently the Young Bucks, Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa, and Brandon Cutler were all suspended for the incident backstage with involving CM Punk and CM Punk's locker room. And there's a report out, like I said, this is just a report that the Bucks kicked in the door of CM Punk's locker room after he went total scorched earth in that media scrum, which I'll get to in a minute. And like Dave Meltzer's reporting it, so even though Dave Meltzer is a joke and a clown and a guy that no one really respects because he only reports one half of the story, if the Young Bucks are involved, Dave Meltzer has the inside scoop. And I was shocked by that, because what I was thinking was the only thing that Tony Khan could really do is fire CM Punk. And the reason why is because there's a rumor going around that the Bucks and Omega threatened to walk out of AEW. Now, neither one, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, none of them are stars in the big picture, okay? And their little niche audience and that little section of fans they have in AEW, yes, they are big superstars. And like I said, Dave Meltzer, who is a total joke, filleting these guys because they let them in their clique and they name moves after him and stuff, so he gives them 8-star matches when all they do is jump around, miss a bunch of high spots, and do super kicks. But that's what they do. But in the grand scheme of things, they're not stars, and they're not going to bring any eyes to the business. Hell, since Kenny Omega's come back, apparently his segments in the Trios tournament with the Young Bucks, viewers have actually tuned out, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of viewers have turned off the program when they're on. So that should tell you right there that they're not a draw. They never were a draw. They're not any good. Okay, and I'm going to say some things about them in this video that's going to prove that I'm a mark for certain people, and I am a mark. And it's going to be, I'm going to call him Harpo. I'm going to call, Kenny Omega Harpo and Kenny Olivier, and I'm going to call the Young Bucks the Hardly Boys and the Cucamonga Kids, because I'm a mark for a lot of people in wrestling. Jim Cornette's one of them. And you can call me a mark if you want to, because all you people who call me a mark because I don't like a certain wrestler, what does that make you? It's like pot, meat, kettle. You don't even know what a mark really is. And I'm a mark for certain things in wrestling that you're not. I'm a mark for good wrestling and smart people in wrestling. But I digress. But the reason, getting back, sorry, I go off on a tangent, you know me. But the reason I said that the only thing Tony Khan can really do in this situation is fire CM Punk, because with the Bucks and Omega, reportedly, like I said, this is just a report and a rumor. I don't have any information. I have as much legit information as, Dave Meltzer does, which is usually barely any. Yeah, burn. But if they were to quit and leave AEW, the second that they'd be available to be signed, the WWE would scoop them up. If for nothing else, just a little stick it to, AEW. It's like, hey, I've got all your EVPs now, Tony. What's up? Even though they wouldn't be anything, they would be like mid-carders on NXT, which would be hilarious. And And I would still think that Triple H and company would hire them. I know Vince would in a heartbeat. Vince would have hired them in a heartbeat and probably let them do their bad comedy routines on TV. But Triple H, I think, you know, he's close with Adam Cole, and Adam Cole is going to talk these guys up, so they would at least get a shot. So, but there is no chance of CM Punk going back to WWE. There wasn't when Vince was in charge, let alone Triple H. They can't stand each other. And it's like been reported that the WWE has no interest whatsoever in CM Punk, and even less interest in Phil Brooks, who, if, for all you people who don't know, Phil Brooks is CM Punk's real name. Because, I mean, CM Punk, he's a dick. He's an asshole. And I am actually on his side in this, but yeah, CM Punk is a whiner, a crybaby, and he plays the victim a lot. You know, he's a mark for Bret Hart, and you can tell he's a mark for Bret Hart because, you know, he's got the whole victim mentality and the whining and crying down to like a level that Bret Hart mastered. But that being said, I mean, there's been reports of the stuff, this kind of childish crap going on in AEW even before CM Punk got there. Because if you're not a part of that little clique of people that are surround the Bucks and Omega and all their buddies that they got jobs for that have zero talent, like Excalibur, Brandon Cutler, and the rest, and a lot of other ones. There's some with some talent. I mean, Christopher Daniels must be one of their homies, and Christopher Daniels is talented as hell. And he got suspended. I haven't even heard he was involved in it yet. But who knows, you know, whatever. They're a bunch of pro wrestling gorilla jack-offs who really don't know how to wrestle. But anyway, but like you saw what happened with Cody Rhodes, and they got sideways with each other, which everybody knew that was going to happen because Cody Rhodes is an actual wrestling guy with a wrestling pedigree. Omega and the Bucks aren't, and you know, they were all quote unquote EVPs. Although the EVP thing, yeah, that was their title and position in the company, but they didn't do anything an actual executive vice president would be. And with the Bucks and Omega, I'd be surprised if they could even spell executive vice president. But the fact of the matter is, I figured what was going to happen was Tony was going to fire CM Punk and Ace Steel, because it was reported that Ace Steel like threw a chair at Nick Jackson, who I think, is he Balding Buck? I think he's Balding Buck, and his brother is Road Warrior Buck, or Buck Hogan, or whatever they're calling him now. I think that. Don't hold me to that, because I don't really watch the Young Bucks very often, but I think Nick Jackson's Balding Buck. But please correct me if I'm wrong. See what I said, Jim Cornette mark. But if they would have fired Steel and CM Punk, there could have been some serious legal ramifications from that, and there's still going to probably be some legal ramifications from that, because let's face it, the Bucks and Omega are the type of whiny bitches that would totally sue Tony Khan and Shad Khan. So let's be honest, it's Shad Khan who's really, you know, the overlord of this. See, Tony Khan may be in charge of AEW and maybe the booker. The money that's paid out for this show is basically from Shad Khan, because AEW is operated under the Khan family umbrella, and you know, and it's kind of a black eye on the company, on the whole business. And I'm surprised that Shad Khan's letting it go on as long as he has, because you know he's already got at least one black eye on their business, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. But another video for another time. But they're the type of suit, and quite frankly, so is CM Punk. And CM Punk, what was reported is after the media scrum, which was like, if you've watched it, I mean, it was hilarious. And I don't like Punk at all, but I'm on his side, and I understand I'm on his side. I guess I'm quote unquote Team Punk, even though I think it's just fun. This stuff is more entertaining than anything AEW's put out in any kind of programming. But Punk, he really shouldn't have done that at the media scrum. But I understand why he did it, because, you know, sometimes your emotions boil over. Believe me, I've been guilty of that a time or two in my life. Nobody's perfect, least of all me. And sometimes, even if you don't want that to happen, when you open that, you know, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You know what I mean? But if you watch that, and listening to it's one thing, it's funny, but you've got to watch it and look at Tony Khan's face. He literally can see the whole foundation of AEW crumbling and everything burning in front of his eyes, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. It's cringy. I can only watch like 2 minutes of it, It was like watching a really, really bad American Idol audition. I don't know. I haven't watched American Idol in a long time, but back in the day, with some of the auditions, some were so bad that you had to turn your head or cover your eyes because it was so cringy, and that's what it was. I'm like, oh, I can't watch this anymore. Tony, it's crumbling on him, and again, kind of feel bad for Tony because he's a nice guy. He seems like a nice guy with a good heart, and he really doesn't want anyone to dislike him. He wants everybody to be friends. And all Tony wanted to do was just book a wrestling show because he's a wrestling fan, and he used to fantasy book stuff in his basement. You know, he wants to just book the show and book wrestling and just do all that fun stuff. But he really does. He didn't understand the negatives of any kind of business, especially the wrestling business, and the egos he was going to have to deal with. I don't think he took that into account. And now he's starting to realize that the Bucks and Omega do not have the company's best interest at heart. I think with this suspension, I think he's starting to realize that. So that's an interesting thing too, because they don't have the company's best interest at heart. They never have. Cody did, but he just could not deal with that childish bullshit. So he left and went to WWE, and became one of the biggest stars in the business, and probably got the biggest pop of anyone at WrestleMania, and was putting on some good matches. Cody Rhodes, I'm not a huge fan of him, but he's made an impact. He was booked well before he got hurt. We'll see what happens when he comes back. But like I said, he was over as anyone in the business at the time, and he seems more like a WWE guy. But we'll see what happens with Triple H in charge. But that's, like I said, another video for another time. But the suspension of all these guys and not CM Punk, it shocked me. I'm not going to lie. It was a surprise to me. Because Tony Khan, it was really basically damned if you do, damned if you don't. I thought he was going to have to fire Punk, and of course Ace Steel too, because Ace Steel, with the chair incident and everything, even though there was reported that his wife was in this locker room too, and maybe he walked in and there was an altercation going on that his wife and his friend were in the middle of, and he overreacted. That I can understand, because I would have been the same way. If I walk into a locker room and my wife is there and my friend is being surrounded by multiple people, then yeah, we're going to be scrapping. And there could be a chair flying. So that I can understand, but still, there's probably going to be some I'm not going to say any criminal charges or anything filed, but there's definitely going to be some civil things going on. There's going to be some lawsuits, and there's going to be a lawsuit regardless of what you did. Because, like I said, if he would have fired CM Punk, he would have had to probably cut him a check for the majority of his contract, or buy out the remaining years of his contract, or whatever. Because if he'd have fired Punk for that, when it was reported that the Bucks kicked in his door, the Bucks and I think Omega was with them, although it was said that Omega stayed out of the physical thing, and I guess he did because he was not among the people suspended. So, because, you could tell that Harpo, he's never been in a real fight in his life, and if it's not a Japanese schoolgirl, he really doesn't know what to do with it. But if he would have fired Punk for that, just because, you have to get rid of one piece of this equation. And here's my EVPs over here who could jump to the competition and just make me look bad, or you can get rid of Punk. And that's it, because Punk's not going to WWE. He doesn't have to. Hell, CM Punk doesn't need wrestling. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of CM Punk, but just the fact that he is willing to just go scorched earth on people in the company he's contracted to, and he's done that with WWE too. Imagine him in a podcast. He could probably make more money on a podcast than he could ever in wrestling, and it's less wear and tear on his body. Like if he started his own podcast, he would probably be up there in viewership with Jim Cornette and Brian Last and the Experience and the Drive-Thru. That's the kind of viewership he would get, because he pulls no punches. And he's an asshole, but I don't think he's ever claimed to be to not be an asshole. So I can respect that. Sort of the way Brock Lesnar, never claimed to be anything other than what he is. And I can respect that. You may not like it, but I'll respect it. But if he would have fired Punk for cause because of this, which I guess he could have, because it's a toxic work environment. But the fact that they kicked in his door and brought the confrontation to him, and apparently Punk took some swings, and maybe he made a contact with Road Warrior Buck, I don't know, because it turned he swung on Matt Jackson, I guess, and Then Nick Jackson got a chair to the side of the face, which just thinking about that's funny. Like, dong! Like the cartoon sound effects and stuff, because it's just cartoony bullshit. But anyway, if they would fired him, CM Punk could have easily had an easy lawsuit and sue them for, you know, an unsafe working environment and all that stuff, and probably would have got a pretty penny. So they would have had to cut a check to make Punk go home, because I think if they would have given him, you know, whatever, they got billions of dollars, it'd be a drop in a bucket to pay what his contract is worth. You let him and Ace Steel, they just here's a check, just go home, and you know, it was fun while it lasted, but we just got to part ways. Here's some money. That probably would have been the end of it, although Punk probably would have, they would have, see if Punk would have signed a DNR, I don't know, or DNR. A DNR, do not resuscitate, good lord. My mind's going a mile a minute. I meant a non-disclosure, an NDA. Good God, a DNR. I'm an idiot. But anyway, they would have definitely signed an NDA. And, you know, Punk could have been like, you want me to sign an NDA, you better add another zero to this check. So Punk would have a lot of leverage there. But, surprisingly, as of right now, and who knows what's going to happen in the future, it's just basically the Young Bucks camp minus Harpo that's suspended. And we'll see what kind of ramifications that has, and it's yet to be confirmed the lengths of the suspensions. But that's surprising to me. And, I mean, Tony Khan showed that he had some balls, and like I said, people said he doesn't have any balls, and he doesn't want to, you know, he doesn't want anyone to hate him. You can tell that, and he can't handle that if someone were to not like him. Because, like I said, he seems like a nice, decent human being. You know, he doesn't, like he said, he let these people's contracts expire, that the people who can't wrestle worth a damn. But instead of just firing them outright, he allowed them to sit home and collect money on their contracts, and he didn't fire them because he didn't have the balls to do it. But, you know, hey, you got paid for a few more months than you should have, so just be happy about it. Like, I'm talking to you, dwarf dong sucker. See, once again, Cornette Mark. I'm not even a name dropper either, but, you know, I'm doing it this time. What the hell? And like I said, anyone who watches this video, you're a mark too. So you call me a mark all you want, but yeah, pot, meat, kettle, we're all marks. Okay, that's just the way it is. It's not really a derogatory term anymore because we're all marks. But we'll see what happens more. Because honestly, I didn't think CM Punk was going to last this long in the company because of this kind of stuff. Because Punk does not want to do that stuff. I mean, Punk, like he said, he works with children. And that's what he's doing. He's working with children. And I don't even think he wants to work with MJF, like, anymore. Because MJF, I mean, MJF cares more about wrestling than the majority of that roster. Because there aren't too many actual legit wrestlers on the AEW roster. It's mostly consisting of people that want this company to be like a live-action video game. That's what they want. That's what the Bucks and Omega and all their people in their camp want. They don't want it to be a legitimate wrestling company. They want it to be a live-action wrestling video game. That's what they want. But there's people like CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, William Regal, or is he William Regal or Steve Regal? I don't know what they're going by, but Regal, their man is Regal. Maybe Claudio, maybe MJF, and there might be a couple more people who actually care about wrestling. But the majority of that is just a bunch of the people who are unqualified, untrained, nowhere near ready for TV, but they were friends with Omega and the Bucks, and Tony Khan gave them jobs because they were sold a bill of goods by these idiots. And now he's starting to realize who actually has the company's best interests at heart. Because CM Punk, although I think he's more wanting to get the company over to enrich himself, but still he wants to get the company over, and that's more than I can say for the Bucks and Omega and their people. So, kudos to Tony Khan. We'll see what happens. There's probably going to be some lawsuits coming out. I can see the Bucks suing. I can see a lot of lawsuits and stuff, and I guess there's a third-party investigation going on now, and I think it's only a matter of time before Shad Khan gets involved, because like I said, Tony Khan may quote-unquote control and be in charge of AEW. The money spent to start that company was Daddy's money, not his. Now, Tony Khan, he owns Ring of Honor. He bought that apparently with his own money. But AEW, like I said, that's under the Khan family business umbrella. And, you know, how many black eyes does the company need? Like I said, they got the Jaguars, and now they got AEW with the ratings not doing very well. And it is kind of funny because the last couple of weeks things have really been getting out of hand, because since Omega's come back and their segments with Omega and their matches, the ratings have gone down. The viewers have turned off the show. They turn it on for Punk, they turn it off for Omega or Olivia or whatever you want to call him. That's very telling, and that might have been taken into account. You know, he might have, Tony Khan may have taken that into account with his decision. I don't know. I'm just very surprised by this, because I was just about to make this video about saying that he has to fire Punk. He can't really do anything with the Bucks and Omega, because if they quit the second they get signed, they're going to go to WWE, and then it's going to be like, hey, I got all your EVPs. What are you going to do? So I don't think they would have actually turned the tide to WWE. I think that tide's already been turned, and it never really was in AEW's favor anyway. But it's not going to be like, I mean, if WWE were to sign the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, that would not be any kind of a death nail to AEW, because they would just be signed. They would just be signed so the WWE can say, "Hey, we got your EVPs," and they would have just been relegated to like NXT opening matches of NXT. So they would just be stuck on the show that they still brag about beating in the ratings, when you know it was the WWE's AAA affiliate. That's what they beat in the ratings, but. Yeah, kudos to Tony Khan for, I think, making the right decision. I mean, Punk is not an easy guy to work with. He's moody, whiny, and he plays the victim a lot. But in this situation, I gotta be on his side. I mean, it's all started with Colt Cabana bullshit, and he hasn't had anything to do with Colt Cabana in the better part of a decade. And, you know, their issue has nothing to do with AEW. And, like, Colt Cabana, they say Colt Cabana got fired from AEW because of Punk. I mean, he wasn't doing anything anyway. He should have been fired, because Colt Cabana is, what was he, in the Dark Order? Like, no one cares about the Dork Order. Like, literally, no one cared about them when Brody Lee, whatever his name is. Is that Brody Lee? Yeah, Brody Lee was alive. Now, who's going to care about him now? But no, he got signed with Ring of Honor, so basically he's signed and making money from a company that doesn't even technically exist. So, you know, he should be thankful he even has a job, because my limited experience with Colt Cabana, the guy has no talent whatsoever. So, boo-hoo, but of course he's friends with the Bucks and Omega and part of that camp, so of course they have to do their little high school bullshit. And Punk, like a lot of people, are just too old for that. And it's going to start, like I said, other guys in the company, it's probably happening, but Punk doesn't really care, because he doesn't necessarily need AEW. I mean, Moxley made the remark when they were in a promo, it was like, you only came back because you ran out of money. I doubt that's the case, but, I mean, Punk is making a lot of money in AEW. And he can make a lot of money elsewhere, especially, like I said, on a podcast. He can make millions on a freaking podcast, just because he's willing to just throw caution to the wind and say whatever the hell he wants to. If he's got a platform where he won't be punished to do that, I'd actually listen to that, because that'd be fun. But it's just a bunch of high school people, a bunch of high school children wanting to play their video game, wanting to do their thing, and this is not anything new. Like, there's been grumblings about this for years, about this group and this quote unquote clique, where if you don't play the way they like to play, you're on the outside looking in, and they're going to do whatever they can to cut your nuts off. And that's been like that for years, even when they were doing shows in front of 35 people in California and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla or whatever, which is a joke. But that's how they operate, because they have no actual talent and they don't really know how to wrestle, and they don't know how to put on a wrestling show, so they have to do their stupid stuff that entertains only them, and their bad sketch comedy crap. And like I said, Kenny Omega, I never really cared for Kenny Omega, but I lost all respect for him when he had his run as world champion with Don Callis, and in the middle of Live Dynamite on live cable television, he asked his manager Don Callis to 69 him in the middle of the ring. That's cutting edge programming there, so whatever. But that's just the way they are, and let's see who else nuts they try to cut off, because they're not going to stop, because they're EVPs, and you know they're suspended. They'll be back. Or if they're not, it's no big deal. They can get rid of that trios title crap, and Omega can go back to Japan, if he's even allowed to go back to Japan, and, you know, do whatever he does behind closed doors with 13-year-old Japanese girls. I don't know. I've heard the rumors, and people say he's a weird guy. Yeah, he's kind of weird. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm surprised that they haven't tried to do something to Danielson or maybe even Moxley. I don't know. I don't think they would have the balls to do something on a guy like Moxley. Although I don't think Moxley's nearly as tough as he's out. And like I said, Moxley's kind of he does his own garbage thing too. He's not a wrestler. Like I said, another video for another time there. But all these people who legitimately want to wrestle and have good wrestling matches, that doesn't vibe with what the Young Bucks camp wants. So they try to cut people's nuts off like that, especially a guy like Punk, who is the most over guy in that company, with the exception of maybe Danielson, and that's about it. Maybe MJF, because MJF is a potential star, but I think MJF is going to be his own worst enemy ultimately. So we'll see what happens there, but there's going to be more stuff coming out about this. Probably going to be some civil action going on. There's going to be some lawyers involved, like I said, third-party investigation. Could be criminal charges filed. Definitely going to be lawsuits filed for sure. So, Tony Khan, welcome to the real world now, bud. It's not just fantasy booking in your basement anymore. You actually have to deal with this stuff. And you can tell by the look on his face at that scrum, he didn't know what the hell to do. He didn't know whether to wind his ass or scratch his watch. Kind of feel bad for him, but he allowed this to fester. And when you allow a cancer to grow and not cut it out, what happens? It just gets worse, and that's what happened. But that's the way I see it. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And I thank you all for watching, and I hope you join me next time on the Redacted Report. Take care.